Hello and welcome to yet another Growing with God video. Today we're going to answer the question, why does God speak of vengeance? So, there are a lot of places in the Bible where God mentions vengeance, like, for example, Judges chapter 11, verse 36, Psalms chapter 149, verse 7, as well as Isaiah chapter 47, verse 3, and some other places. But what I want to use this video to discuss is why God talks about vengeance so much, why it arises in the first place, and who God is exactly taking vengeance against. So, to understand the concept of vengeance from a spiritual perspective, we first have to understand where vengeance comes from. You see, the idea of God taking vengeance all starts from the rebellion of Satan the devil. We see this discussed in Isaiah chapter 14, where we see that Satan rebelled against God, and then it later told us about what God was going to do with him as a result. And plus, we read in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 3 to 13, that he will destroy all the evil systems of this world in his vengeance. And he does this to fulfill Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 35, and Romans chapter 12, verse 19, where it tells us that vengeance belongs to God. And the Romans account reads, "Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord." So this verse highlights the fact that vengeance belongs to God. But God's vengeance isn't really only to Satan directly, but actually to all of his institutions that are set up on this earth, run by humans on his behalf. For example, we see this done by God in the Bible, where he destroyed the entire Egyptian empire because of their lack of regard for God and the way they treated the Israelites. So he destroyed that empire through the 10 plagues. If we read Exodus chapter 5, verse 12, where we see that the nation was weakened very greatly. And that same spirit of vengeance also led God to instruct King Saul to destroy all of the Amalekites for what they did to God's people in the past when they were going to the promised land, as we see in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 2 to 3. It was a very serious thing that God had to take vengeance on. And this passage reads, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass." So we see how serious what they did was, which is why God took vengeance. But sometimes God may even take vengeance on his own people when they start to stray away from God or are taken captive of by Satan. We see in Jeremiah chapter 5 verse 26 that there can actually be wicked people among God's people. This verse reads, "For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait, as he that setteth snares, they set a trap, they catch men." So because these people, these wicked people, are inspired by Satan to rule God's people against God's interest, God's vengeance is directed against them. And we see Jesus Christ trying to help us understand this concept through a parable about how God may allow wickedness to expand in his institutions sometimes, and then he'll take vengeance against those wicked people inside those institutions when the time comes. We see this with the parable of the wheat and tares in Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30, and verses 36 to 43. And this parable also teaches us that sometimes Satan may enter God's institutions and put people that may have a different agenda from what God's agenda really is. And we see this with the kings of Israel, such as Jeroboam, who were used by Satan to lead the Israelites to sin. If we read 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 29, that Jeroboam caused sin in Israel. And then God took vengeance on his kingdom as a result in 1 Kings chapter 13, verse 34, where King Jeroboam and his kingdom was destroyed off the face of the earth. And plus, there were also the Pharisees, who were called out for being hypocrites by Jesus Christ, and God later took vengeance on them in 70 CE when the whole kingdom was sacked. But what we should take from this is that when we see God taking vengeance on his enemies, we are supposed to rejoice because God is finally having a victory. And we see in Revelation chapter 19, verses 1 to 5, where the righteous were actually rejoicing about God's vengeance when he was finally, on top and wasn't in an intense battle with Satan anymore, in a way. So this is something that we as righteous people should rejoice of when we see this happening in our time, and we gradually see God winning in this battle. But anyway, I think I can stop here on discussing why does God speak of vengeance. Is it because There are wicked people in his institutions many times, and there are also many institutions that are working against God that he has to take vengeance against for what they did to his plan. But anyway, I think I can stop here on answering that question. If you have enjoyed this video, it would be great if you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also to hit the notification bell so you'll know when new Growing with God videos come out. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.